YMWS has achieved much, but there still remains a great lot to be achieved. By the turn of the century, we believe that about 4,000 students will be able to take advantage of YWMS's abilities. And it's precisely for this purpose that we've had this gathering this evening. May I now request Mr. Shaurabh Mukherjee to come and speak a few words and tell us about what he thinks of India in the next decade.
PC Sarkar, my friend PC Sarkar Jr., Dr. Upendra Biswas, Professor Chakraborty, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great privilege for me to welcome you on the occasion of our 30th Foundation Day today. It is time for introspection, a time to celebrate the little good we have achieved, a time to say thank you to all our countless friends and co-workers who have been fellow travelers in our journey through Calcutta's Jericho roads. We live at a time when all nations have unexpected insights into the pervasive nature of poverty and how its presence threatens the future of mankind. Poverty has many causes, but its strong roots are in the human mind. Our villages and slums have been conditioned through decades of neglect, hardship and subjugation to doubt that the system can be changed and to mistrust their own capacity to change. Something very profound clearly has to happen to clear the mental slums, stir up the mind, raise the spirit and release people's latent energies. We have to stop romanticizing poverty and instead work on strategies that will help to cultivate attitudes, attributes and capacities which characterize transcending behavior. YMWS have been involved in works of education for the past 30 years. We run schools for 2,000 children drawn from the weaker sections of society. Over the years, more than 25,000 children have completed their primary education in YMWS schools. The program encompasses a package of health services, provision of drinking water, funds is slow but steady. Ladies and gentlemen, time does not permit me minutes of living. We are conscious of the fact, the presence of God. Sri Aurobindo reminds that all can be done if the God touch is there. YMWS pledges and recognizes the oneness of humanity. Thank you for being with us this evening.
May I request the second person to come up and garland Dr. Upendra Biswas. Now may I request the person to come up, garland Mr. Shubhankar Chakraborty. And may I request this little boy to garland Mr. Sarkar. Now, other than Mr. Sarkar. Ladies and gentlemen, I shan't stand between you and Dr. Hussain, but I do feel that this is the appropriate time to talk about what Dr. Hussain is going to talk about today. India, 50 years, where do we go from here? I'll just say that this is perhaps, in the words of Charles Dickens, both the best of times and the worst of times, the spring of hope and the winter of despair. the season of mist and meadow fruitfulness, and the season of hope springing anew. Dr. Abid Hussain, ladies and gentlemen.
Beholden to Mukherjee for asking me to be here this evening when you are celebrating the 30th year of the foundation of your association, which has done outstanding work in these 30 years. The little that I saw in the morning or in the afternoon thrilled me, and I was really amazed at the response which Saurabh has been able to get from the people in the villages. Because believe me, however good your mission may be, however good your intent may be, unless and until you are able to inspire and evoke a sympathetic thought amongst the people, the work cannot flower, it cannot blossom, it cannot bear fruit. And it goes to the credit of Saurabh and his colleagues, if not only, that they have been able to invoke that respect which, words as you said, touches God to the man and brings about a divinity which is past and brings luster and light to the life he has been able to do. And I congratulate him for what he has achieved, and I'm sure I am with you to hope that what he has achieved will be multiplied hundreds of times, and the light of his work will reach several areas of darkness and enlighten people over there. But friends, I have been asked to speak this evening about the 50 years of India's independence, and I think the coming 50 years ahead of us. We are celebrating the 50 years all over India, and Indians and even friends of India, though not Indians, are celebrating it outside India also. I have had the opportunity to participate in some celebrations of this type which have been organized in the States, in Norway, in Switzerland, and in some other places also. It's wonderful to see as to how our friends are interested in knowing as to what India has achieved, and are expecting a lot from us in the coming years. Those of you who were born or who are considered to be the midnight children would not know as to what India was when we got our independence. India was a land of darkness. I'm not talking of the ancient India when there were sages, there were saints, there were philosophers. But I'm talking of that India which was immediately there, preceding the independence that we got. Those were the years of the worst poverty that human mankind, I would say, would have encountered anywhere. In your great city of Calcutta itself, hundreds and thousands of people died on the streets, the lanes and the bylanes of this great city, and there was nobody to take care of them. They died like insects, they died like as if they were not human beings at all. And that was India. And that was India also, which was full of illiteracy and diseases. That was India also where people did not know as to what to do, except to depend on a little rain somewhere to get a little food out of our Mother Earth. From that particular point, we started moving ahead under the leadership of great leaders of your city, of Calcutta, and other people. Gandhiji, Jawaharlal Nehru and others, they all joined together to fight for our independence. And when we got our independence, we were praised not just because we were able to break the chains of slavery, but we were praised for attaining independence through non-violence. There have been many cases the world over where people have rebelled against their rulers and have found their independence. But in our case, we did not use violent methods. As a matter of fact, because of the violence, several occasions we have withdrawn from our fight, and we said that we'll purify ourselves and then only we'll work for our independence and get. So that was a great glory for India at that particular point of time, that we got our independence, not with the help of the sword, not through violence, not by killing, but by what you would call a cultured and a civilized way of asserting non-violence. Why? There were great celebrations at that particular point of time when we got our independence. That was also a moment of great sorrow for us, because our country was divided. A country which we worshipped, we thought it to be undivided assets which we had received from our forefathers. We partitioned. And the partition brought nothing but bloodshed all around, and a great amount of suffering and agony for everybody. But then again we came out of that darkness, as I would say, and we saw the light, and slowly bit by bit, we purged ourselves of that sort of a feeling of satanic forces which had got hold of us. I don't mean to say that we have completely purged ourselves of the evil of communalism as such a casteism. But surely we were able to mend the ways to proceed further. So that was a moment of sorrow for us. But then there was another aspect of glory which we should not forget today. And especially I refer to those boys and girls who were born and they did not know as to what India was at that time. The India which we inherited from the British at that time was itself a divided India within India. There were hundreds of princes, the Nizams and the Rajas and Maharajas, who had divided the country into bits and pieces. And it goes to the credit of Mahatma and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel that we were able to unite India against all the odds which were there against us at that particular moment of time. And we integrated the country, and never before in the history of India did you have a united, administered India, an India united in terms of being one state, and that we created it, for which again we got the doctors. I might also remind that at that particular point of time, not only those who were inimical to us, but those who were our friends, they never believed that India would be able to remain united. They said that India might get independence from the British, but then it will collapse. Even Churchill had said that India will not be able to maintain its unity at all. Whatever Jawaharlal and Gandhi and others might think of it, they will not succeed. But we are happy that not only we united India, but we kept it as an integrated whole. Then the third great thing which we did was that by getting independence, we proved that the democratic forces will become the order of the day in India. We gave to ourselves a constitution, a republican constitution, in which we made all men equal. I again do not mean to say that we became equal by that particular declaration. I do not mean to say that we became an ideal democracy or a perfect democracy by adopting the particular constitution. But that showed that we were firmly of the view that if India is to become glorious in a year, in 2 years, in 50 or 100 years, it should be through the path of democracy as such. And is it not a matter of pride that today you have got the president of this particular country who does not come from any dynasty or any rich family or any big, what you call, caste, but belongs to the humblest of the humble caste that we have in this country. We have many instances in our country where slowly and bit by bit we proved it, that we would like a sense of equality to be established in this country and democracy to be maintained. And I must say that as we went on this particular journey, there came many moments when we were tested, when our democracy was tested, our administrators, our people, our individuals were tested, but we stood by democracy. Never did it happen when we had said that we surrender democracy and we take to arms, or we go to the military or to the army to run this particular country. Yes, we had many difficulties, many undisciplined occasions arose in this particular country, but always we stood by the firm will of the people giving the verdict to form the government. Mrs. Gandhi, I'm talking of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, who had become the darling of this particular country, our hearts used to twinkle with brightness when we used to think of her. But even when she brought emergency, she had to vacate the position of power and authority she commanded, which clearly showed that in India, there comes a moment of time when the best of men are tested, and if they don't come up to the standard of democracy, they are thrown. Mrs. Gandhi had again to fight back opposition and come to power as a leader of India, but through the ballot box. The same thing happened with Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. When he lost the election, he gave it to his successor and tried to come back again, not through the back door, but through the ballot again. It's a different thing, that the life was hard on him, cruel on him, I would say, that he was assassinated, annihilated. But the point which I am trying to make is that important commitment which we made at the time of our independence to remain democratic, we stuck to that particular thing. Even recently, when our people were unhappy with the executive all over, when people started feeling that there is corruption in high places and others, when they felt that the parliament was not doing justice in the way that the people were wanting it, or the legislators were not legislating the way that we expected them to do it, we again did not use the bullet. We again did not go to the army to come and command us, but we went to the High Court and the Supreme Court, knocked at the door for justice, and we are going through that particular process. So the point at which I am trying to make is that it is extremely necessary for us to understand this thing, that when we got our independence, we committed ourselves to certain ideals. I would again repeat that we have not achieved all the ideals, but our achievements are not insignificant. If you take to agriculture, I told you as to what the situation in India was when we did not have even a 0.5% rate of growth in agriculture. Today our rate of growth is about 2.5% to 3% in agriculture. And this green revolution which we brought in this particular country was brought by our kisans, our farmers, our peasants. There might not have been the sort of reforms which we have had in China, but don't forget when China had its reform, it paid a heavy price for it in terms of human lives. We did not. We accommodated all the classes, no doubt, and there were weaknesses in that particular thing. But today we have been able to grow 180 million tons of food grains. We have 30 billion of food grains in our granaries which are reserved. This is not an ordinary thing which is happening. Nowhere in the world you can take people in the particular form that India was at that particular point of time when we got our independence and brought about this particular change. You take industries. When we got our independence, permit me to say that India was nothing but an industrial desert. There was hardly anything in this country except for few textile mills, I would say, a half-hearted attempt at steel industry, and a few industries connected with railways and army. But in less than 30 years after our independence, we were able to raise the industrial structure in this country, and we became, few people might be doing, the 10th big industrial country in the world. It is true that we were not able to achieve much more that we were capable of, but it cannot be denied that the rate of growth of industry, which was about 1% during the British days, we were able to raise it to about 8%, 9%, and lately it has touched even 11% rate of growth. And when you look at the industries, in different areas we have done it. whether it is mechanical or electrical or engineering or mineral-based or chemical-based, to name anything and you will find that we did it. And the marvelous thing is that we did with our own labor. The marvelous thing is that we did with our technicians and our engineers and others. Where were they? When we got our independence, all that we had from the schools and colleges were only babus who were coming out. And our professionals had to go abroad in order to get what you call the stem of efficiency from outside. But then we built up our own sources and we were able to achieve, as I said, something which is glorious in this respect. I do not wish to go more into the details of what we have achieved, but let me refer to one more thing. The human power that we created in this country. Today we have got about 1/7 of the world's technocrats and technologists and professionals in this country. A country in which, as I said, you did not have any professions at all. You have been able to produce the scientists, the technicians, technocrats and others. They are not only good for India, but they are found to be good for the rest of the world also. These men and women, the boys and the girls, when they have traveled out of India, they have been treated with open arms. And even in a country like America, which is the most competitive country in the world, it opened its gates to receive the Indians and greeted them over there. It was not that they were doing any charity, but they knew that there was something, some merit in these particular countries. Wherever our men have gone, whether as laborers in the most inhospitable conditions of the Gulf countries, or whether as professionals to America, Germany and others, our boys have done, our girls have done extremely well. But then, again, as I said, that the story of India's development is a story of sunlight and shadows. While there have been these sunlights which we should accept, we must also look to the shadows which have really overshadowed some of our successes. In spite of the agricultural growth to which I made a reference, there are hundreds and thousands of people in different parts of this particular country who are not able to get a square meal. There are people who see the food and yet they don't have the purchasing power to buy it. Now this is not a point in our favor. Then there are new buildings which are coming up. Everywhere you see the construction. And yet at the same time when you turn and try to look at the plight of the poor, what do you find? Again, hundreds and thousands of people sleeping on the pavements, on the roadside, near the open gutters, without any help of any sort given to them by the government or by any associations. You also find that though there are the mothers who would love the children, and yet when the children cry for milk, they are not able to feed them. And then when you look at these particular new talents which we have created in India, what do you find again? The urge amongst the boys and the girls to leave the country and find a job elsewhere. It is not that they are less patriotic. It is not that they are against India. It is not that they are mercenaries. But then when you don't provide them the facilities to work, when the system does not give them the sustenance to survive, they leave the country. But then whenever they find that they have attained a certain element of prominence or independence, they would like to come back to this country. I was just giving you this particular picture of India to show it to you that in these 50 years we did achieve much, and yet at the same time there has been a lot which we have not been able to do. When we compare ourselves with some of the other countries also, sometimes we feel absolutely depressed and discontented to find that there are smaller countries in our neighborhood who have done far better than we have done. True, they have not been able to work through the democratic principles. True, they have not given power to the powerless as we are trying to give. But the fact remains that they have been able to attain an economic growth or the rate of growth which we have not been able to achieve. And therefore the question comes that we have gone wrong somewhere and we have got to correct ourselves. And I am happy that in the last 1 or 2 years or 3 years, the reforms that have started creeping into India is an acceptance of the fact that there is nothing wrong with the people of India. There is nothing wrong with the young men and the women of India. There is something wrong with the system of the government in this country. There is something wrong with the structure of the government which we have got. And it is extremely necessary now for us to change this particular system and to change the structures. The policies by themselves will not be able to answer the problem unless and until the delivery systems. Rajiv Gandhi used to say that we have given so much of money for elimination of poverty, alleviation of poverty, but what has happened? That by the time a rupee which travels down from the Delhi down to the villages, about 75 paisas out of that particular rupee is gone. Now that is not the way that we will be able to correct the things. But that awareness of this particular thing is also not an answer. What is needed is to change the system and to trust the people and give them the right to do the things which they can do best. Delhi might be a great city, a good city, but Delhi is today far, far away from the hearts and the minds and the lives of the people of this particular country. There have got to be governments closer to the people, not only closer in the state, but closer to their villages and others. Even if there is a good government in Calcutta or in Delhi or in Bombay or the others, that would not solve these basic problems of the people of this country. So therefore there is an urge now which is there among the people that you have got to give the power to the powerless. This Panchayati Raj and others which have come in is an indication of that value. Sometimes our people get uneasy and unhappy about the things which are happening in Bihar or in UP or in other places. But they are forgetting one thing, that there are a million mutinies which are going on in India today. The million mutinies have come in because of a new awakening which has come into the minds of the people of this particular country. However poor, however lowly a man may be, he is trying to assert himself today. He is not contented with just voting right which has been given to him. He is just not contented with the exercise of democracy once in 5 years. He is wanting to be in the process of administering his own life. And this is an important thing which is happening. When the undercaste is rising up in revolt in Bihar and others, and when we see that the government is becoming less and less government, and the governance is becoming impossible, we are missing out one thing, that for these millions of people who were downgraded in the life for centuries, this government of which you and I might have been proud of mattered very little to them. They never got justice from them. They never got anything out of that particular government which could have given them happiness. Today they have revolted against it. Today they are electing people about whom you might say they are uneducated, illiterate, uncivilized and uncultured. But then they say that what have your cultured people done to us? What have these educated people brought to us? What is it that these people who were in power for last so many years have done for us? We will want the government to run this taking place in this country. I know you and I, when we see the proceedings of the legislatures and the parliaments on the TV, we feel bad about it. But then, that is the reflection of the things which are there, which is moving people forward to say that look, if this is what we are doing, what we are doing in the streets is no worse or no better. And let there be a change in this particular regard. And that sort of a change is coming in. Yet one more change which is coming in is in the minds and the aspirations of the people. There is nothing greater which can happen to a people but the change in the attitudes of the mind. Today, my maidservant is not prepared to let her daughter become a maidservant again. Today, my driver is not prepared to see that his son becomes a chauffeur again. Today, the bearers who are working in the hotels and others are not wanting their brothers or cousins to become the bearers again. Each one is striving to be better. My maidservant wants his daughter to get education and education in an English school. My driver is wanting his son to get into engineering and achieve something. Today when even the marriages and the weddings are taking place, if you look into the way the presents are being given and others, they are not the gold bricks or the ornaments alone, but they are given what you call the transport facilities to them. Today, You see, when I returned from America, and I was amazed when my bearer, one of the bearers you see in the planning commission, came to me and said, Mr. Hussain, you have come back. I need your help now. I said, my God, he is again going to ask that I must find a job for his son or somebody. I said, what is it that I could do for you, Ram Singh? And he said, sir, what I want is a telephone connection in my house. Just imagine, I could have never thought that this messenger boy would be asking for a telephone to be fixed in his house. And I said, why? He said, sir, I've got two daughters who are going to this school. I can't reach home, or they can't, you see, get in touch with me when they need me. I want to be in contact with them and achieve something. This is a great change of mind which is coming into the people, that they are wanting and their aspirations are rising. And this is where even the telecommunication and what you call TV is playing an important role. There are some people who say that this advertisement and others is destroying the culture. I do not think that the Indian culture is so flimsy that it will be destroyed by some of the advertisements. But then if you go to the villages in Orissa and others, I have gone and I have asked the people, when they look at the, what you call the television, and they see even the advertisement of a Lux soap or something, it is just not the Lux soap but the totality of the life that they are seeing. The invisibility of the good life has become visible to them. The walls which had separated the rich and the poor are breaking down and shattering down. The rich and the poor are rubbing the shoulders and understanding as to what is common among them and what is different amongst them. This is a great point which cannot be stopped. I was in Iran and I was having talks with him with Yosti and others. And he was very unhappy that you see some of the eating habits of the people and others are changing. I said that my Indians may eat hamburger, but they are not going to become what you call Americans. I said for last 20 years I am eating idli sambar in Delhi, but I have not become a South Indian. The culture is something much more valuable and stronger than the mere eating habits and others. Though they are important, I don't deny it. But it is the values which determine it. And the value of being helpful to others, the value of being working with others, the value of the sort of thing which what you call Mukherjee and others are doing is the important thing which has got to be considered. And yet one more thing I could say, that in order that we must be able to catch up the lost ground, we have to become a much more open society than we have been. We have got, in half humor I said the other day in Delhi, where there was a meeting going on, they were comparing what you call China and India, and they said that India has got an open economy and China has got a closed economy. I said it is not the openness of economy or the closeness of economy that matters. The worst thing is that India has an open economy but a closed mind. The closed mind is the thing which creates all the difficulties. India must be prepared to take and invite the best which is available outside. Today, the way in which the science and technology is moving, the way in which it is jumping and taking the people from the dark ages to the enlightened ages is through science and technology. Now kindly look at that particular thing. What have we done to our science and technology? What is the credit which we give to our professionals in this country? We are still enamored of administrators and the police and the army. I was very recently in the Administrative Staff College and I was addressing what you call the new IAS officers over there. The director told me that, Mr. Hussain, there are 3 boys here who were engineers and 4 who were doctors. I was shocked. I got up and I asked those boys. I said, so much of money has been spent on you by your parents. So much of time you have given to yourself and to your work. And how is it that you have taken it up? I said, I will not speak to you any further unless I get an answer. And one of the boys got up and said, he said, sir, for the last 2 years I am working in a district. And I found that in this country it is far better to inaugurate a bridge rather than to construct a bridge. You see, he was conveying an idea to us. He was giving us a message that in this country of ours we still don't appreciate what you call the professionals and the scientists and the technocrats and others. Unless and until we give them a position of honor and respect, we'll never be able to attain the change that we are thinking of. You go anywhere in the world, Certainly, organization is important and the bureaucrats and administrators will have to be there. But they have a place, but you can't go beyond that. The difference between the south and the north I am finding. In the south and in Bombay and others, the change has come. Today, if you read the matrimony column, the marriages and others, you see, the more dowry is being given to non-IS boys than to the IS boys. So that shows there is a shift now coming in the maternity market, which is a reflection of a change in the people's mind as such. That should be there. But I come back again to my point, that what you have got to do in people like that the world has become a global village. The distances of time and space have been so close that everything has become instant today than ever before. But if some of you know that for Queen Isabel of Spain, it took over 7 months for her to know that Columbus had discovered America. 7 months she took for the news to reach her that Columbus had discovered America. And it took about 7 weeks for people in Paris and London to know that Lincoln was assassinated. But in your and my time, it has taken less than a minute and a half for us to see Neil Armstrong walking on the surface of the moon. Earlier we had to read Tolstoy's books of war and peace to understand as to what atrocities happened in the war front or the other. In the Gulf War, you and I were able to see it happening the very moment when the atrocities of war were being committed over there. The point which I am trying to make is that the world is going and moving fast. Are we moving fast or not? Are we satisfied with the slow speed? If so, we'll again be left behind. $13 trillion worth of currency and money is shifting and changing what you call the places of destination from one country to the other. Millions of people are traveling from one side to the other. You go to what you call airport and you will find how people are jam-packed over there to move. This is the speed with which the things are happening today. And therefore, if we remain stagnant, wondering only and talking of our glory, we will be totally lost. India is a great country. I and you and we love India. But as Naipaul has said, that India's past has been so glorious that if you get lost in it, your past will eat you up. The past has got a glory of values. Let us capture those values. The culture is the culture of what you call the love and affection which is absolutely necessary. I was telling Sharath in the morning that I believe in Russell, what he had said, that a good life is one which is inspired by love and guided by knowledge. Love and knowledge are both indefinitely extensible. Therefore, however good a life may be, a better can always be imagined. Love and knowledge, these two have got to be combined. Fortunately for us, we have got a background in this country. We have a Sanskriti. We have got our classes which teaches us to what the duty means, what dharma means, what the love really means. We have got to keep that thing intact. That is keeping the culture going, not the rituals, not the superstitions and other things. The 50 years hence are calling us to move ahead, faster, with respect for the professionals, with respect for the NGOs, with respect for the activists, with respect for the culture, but not superstition, but not hatred and the others. India is a glorious country, and even today people look to us because of the way in which we have united our diversities. India is like a beautiful bouquet of flowers, in which the different colors of flowers are put together and it becomes a beautiful bouquet. India is like a rainbow in which you see there are many colors, each blending with the other and yet retaining its identity. India is like, sometimes I feel like the musical performance, let's say, of a great artist. And then you will find that while Mozart had hundreds of what you call the different instruments used in the music, each instrument has its own music, but all the different notes, when they combine together, they make a beautiful melody. So India's melody, India's beauty of togetherness has got to be maintained. And I am confident and sure of it that with the invent and the inputs of science and technology, with this element of love and culture which is part of us, we will be able to achieve much more than what we have done. To me, the coming 50 years are going to be brighter. To me, the coming 50 years will be glorious. To me, the coming 50 years will be the rise of the poor, the rise of the powerless, to such an height that they would be the powerful humble, and the humble would be able to be not persecuted nor prosecuting others. So with these few words, I would only like to say that to my mind, when I look at the 50 years of the past, I see the darkness and also the noon. I see the brightness and the darkness. I see the good points and the bad points. And I feel that we are at the crossroads of life. And as we proceed further, let us capture what is good. Let us multiply our forces and move ahead. And I'm sure that with people like Sharab and others and many of you, the great future of ours is not distant, but is true and near. Let's take care of the children. Let's take care of those who are neglected today. Let us think of those women and others who have been denied their rights in this country and move ahead with a firm determination that we have a great future towards which you see we as a nation should move, and our development should be not at the expense of somebody else's development, but should be the beginning of the peace in the world. Thank you.
Of honeymoon period with Afro Rajiv as such, was almost persuaded that India was democratic truly in its traditions. It speaks volumes for his abilities as a speaker. We will now hear the Vice Chancellor.
তার সংহতি, তার ঐতিহ্য নিয়ে আমরা অহংকার বোধ করি না কেন? আমির আমাকে বলছিলেন ওখানে যে রবীন্দ্রনাথ আমার কাছে পরম শ্রদ্ধেয় ব্যক্তি, এত বড় একটা সংস্কৃতির উত্তরাধিকার আপনাদের, আমরা দারুণ শ্রদ্ধা জানাই আপনার ভাষাকে, রবীন্দ্রনাথ। আমি ওনাকে বুঝিয়েছিলাম রবীন্দ্রনাথ আমার সুন্দরতম বাংলা এবং ভারতবর্ষের সাংস্কৃতিক ঐতিহ্য এবং তিনি বিশ্ব নাগরিক, আন্তর্জাতিক ঐতিহ্য। আমি এই উদ্যোক্তাদের বলবো যে আপনারা শিক্ষার ক্ষেত্রে যে আয়োজন করেছেন, শিক্ষার দুটো লক্ষ্য আছে। একটা সন্তানকে মানুষ করা, তার ভেতরে যে মানবিক গুণাবলী তাকে বিকশিত করা, আর একটা কর্মসংস্থানে তাকে সাহায্য করা। এই উভয় ক্ষেত্রে সরকারের যেমন দায়িত্ব থাকে তাকে পালন করতেই হবে, তেমনি সমাজেরও দায়িত্ব আছে, আমাদের তা পালন করতেই হবে। আমাদের সরকার ভাবুন বা না ভাবুন, সমাজ ভাবুন বা না ভাবুন, শিক্ষা চিরকাল জাগরি শক্তির কাজ করে। সেই শক্তিতে আপনারা আমাদের আলোকিত করুন। আমি বাংলায় বললাম এই কারণে, এ আমার ভাষা, আমার সমৃদ্ধ ভাষা। যদি আপনাদের মধ্যে কেউ থাকেন ডক্টর আহমেদ হোসেন ছাড়া, তাহলে বলতে পারেন এখানে কোনো অনুবাদক নেই, আমি অনুবাদকের ভূমিকায় বাংলাটা ইংরেজি করে বলতে পারি। কিন্তু আমি আমার মাতৃভাষা আর অহংকার থেকে আপনাদের বলুন, আমি ওনাকে আমি যা বলবো বলেছি, আমি কি আপনাদের কাউকে ইংরেজি করে বলবো? ধন্যবাদ।
আমাকে একটা কথা বলা যে ভারতবর্ষের বয়স আর আমার বয়স একদম এক, আমিও 50, এবং সেই কারণে আমি আমার দেশকে খুব বন্ধুর মতো বুঝতে পারি এবং জানতে পারি। আমার নাম জুনিয়র, আমার চুল কিন্তু বেরিয়ে গেছে, লম্ব করে ফেলেছি। আমাদের দেশ আমার থেকে অনেক বেশি জুনিয়র, আমাদের দেশের চুল অনেক বেশি বেরিয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু আমাদের দেশ কোনোদিনও বুড়ো হয় না। আমাদের দেশ নিয়ে আমি যখন বিদেশে যাই তখন নাকি বিভিন্ন রকম লোকের সঙ্গে আমি গল্প করে টরে ওদের কাছে এখান থেকে অদ্ভুত ধরনের নানা রকম প্রতিক্রিয়া বা কিছু সমালোচনা শুনি, আমার রক্ত টগবগ করে ওঠে। আমি নিজে প্রোগ্রামটা করছি না, আমি জাপানে গেছি বহুবার, বহুবার গেছি, আমেরিকাতে গেছি, নিউজিল্যান্ডে গেছি, অন্যান্য জায়গায় বহুবার অনুষ্ঠান করেছি। আমি বাংলা ভাষা যেভাবে বলছি, আমি হয়তো জাপানি ভাষা একইভাবে বলতে পারবো, বা আমি স্প্যানিশও বলতে পারবো। আমি যখন বিদেশে যাই আমি কিন্তু প্রফেসর ভাষায় বলছি। আমি না হিন্দিতে বা বাংলায় কথা বলি। তার কারণ রাশিয়া থেকে যখন বর্ষাকালে এসেছিলেন, ওরা যখন দেখি আমাদের এই কলা মন্দিরে ফাংশন করছিলেন, ওরা কেউ কেয়ারই করলো না যে আমরা ওদের ভাষা বুঝলাম কি না বুঝলাম। ওরা পারস্কিতে কুইরা যে বক্তৃতা দিয়ে গেল, আর কিন্তু দোভাষে তিনি কি বললেন, আমার মনে হয় এটা বদলে নেবার ব্যাপার আছে। এই গত 50 বছরে আমি ভালো করে বাংলা শিখেছি। আমি আমাদের দেশে স্বাধীন, কতটা স্বাধীন, আমার মনে হয় ইংরেজরা চলে গেছে বলে আমরা স্বাধীন হয়েছি সেটা ভাবছি কেন। ফ্রেঞ্চরা তো গেছে, স্প্যানিশরা তো গেছে, ওই নাদির সাথে গেছিল। বিশেষ করে এই পার্টিকুলার 50 বছর নিয়ে আমরা এত বুঝিয়ে করছি কেন? আমার নিজের ধারণা এই 50 বছর আগে আমরা অনেকগুলো টুকরো টুকরো দেশ একত্রিত হয়ে একটা ক্লাব বা ইউনিয়ন তৈরি করতে পেরেছিলাম। আমার পকেটে যে আমাদের কারেন্সি নোটগুলো আছে, আমার নোটগুলো যখন হাতে নিয়ে আমার মনে হয় পৃথিবীর সব থেকে সাফল্যের সব থেকে বড় সুন্দর জিনিসের ডকুমেন্ট এটা। কারণ বাঁ পাশে 14টা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে ওই কত টাকার ডিনোমিনেশন সেটা কোশ্চেন লেখা আছে। পৃথিবীতে কোনো দেশ এটা পারেনি। সোভিয়েত ইউনিয়নের 15 দেশ একদিকে হয়েছিল, ভাষা একটা বলতে পারেনি। ইউরো ডলার নিয়ে ওরা লাফালাফি করছেন, আজ পর্যন্ত করতে পারেনি। এই লন্ডন থেকে প্যারিসের যা দূরত্ব, প্যারিসের থেকে বার্লিন যা দূরত্ব, আমাদের কলকাতা থেকে কিন্তু পাটনা বা আমাদের উল্টো দিকে ভুবনেশ্বরে একই রকম দূরত্ব। এই ভাষাগুলো মিলিয়ে আমরা যে একটা দেশ তৈরি করতে পেরেছি, আমার মনে হয় আমার সবথেকে বড় ম্যাজিক বোধহয় এটা। আমি তো দিচ্ছি সরকার, আমার তো অনেক বড় একটা জাদুকর আছে, তার নাম কি সরকার, ভারত সরকার। তার ম্যাজিক সর্বশ্রেষ্ঠ ম্যাজিক। আমি ম্যাজিকের কাছে কিছু নয়। আমি যে ভারতের একটা অঙ্গ, আমি যে ভারতের নাগরিক, সেই নিয়ে আমার বুক যতটুকু আমার মাছ তার থেকে আমার অনেক বেশি। যখন বিদেশে যাই আমি আমার দেশের কালচার নিয়ে ওদের জানান দিতে চাই, আমি দেখাতে চাই যে আমাদের দেশের ছেলেমেয়েরা কি করতে পারে। আমি যখন আমেরিকা গিয়েছিলাম, আমেরিকাতে প্রথম দিকে একজন বলেছিলেন আমাকে, আচ্ছা সবাই আপনার দেশে ওখান থেকে মহিলারা মরে যায়, বিধবা হলে পুড়িয়ে ফেলা হয়। আমি বললাম হ্যাঁ, হয় পুড়িয়ে ফেলে, তাহলে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার অফ ইন্ডিয়া দাঁড়িয়ে দেয়, মানে বিদেশ জাতীয় বিধবা। একজন বললেন, আচ্ছা আপনার দেশে বাড়ি ঘর আছে, বিল্ডিং বিল্ডিং? আমি বললাম যে মানুষ মারা গেলে তোমরা যেন গ্রেভ স্টোন করো, সেরকম একটা গ্রেভ স্টোন হচ্ছে তাজমহল। তাহলে তার বাড়িটা কিনছি আমি, দেখেন একটু হলো কথার কথা। কিন্তু আমাদের নিজেদের কালচার নিয়ে আমি যখন দেখি যে আমাদের দেশে বিদেশিরা এসে আমাদেরকে হেয় করে, আমাদেরকে ছোট করে, আমাদের দেশটাকে চাকর বাকরে যা বানাবার জন্য ওদের দেশে লক্ষ লক্ষ কোটি কোটি টাকা খরচ করে, বা এখন তো যুদ্ধ বোম ফেলে যুদ্ধ হয় না, একটা এরিয়ার অ্যাটাক হয়, ওই ট্রেনের টিকিটের মাঝখান দিয়ে হোক, জেল করে হোক, আমাদের মাথাটাকে ঘষতে দেওয়ার জন্য যে বন্দোবস্ত করে রেখে দিয়েছে, তার বিরুদ্ধে আমাদের লড়াই করতেই হবে। 50 বছর ধরে আমরা যা করেছি, ওরা চেষ্টা করছে ঘষে 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 নষ্ট করে দিতে, আমাদের গ্লোরিগুলোকে ভুলিয়ে দিতে। আমি জানি আমি একমাত্র ম্যাজিশিয়ান নই, আমাদের দেশের প্রত্যেকটা নাগরিক ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ম্যাজিশিয়ান, তাদের প্রত্যেকের মধ্যে ম্যাজিক আছে। আমার একটাই রিকোয়েস্ট, প্লিজ লুকিয়ে থাকবেন না, আপনাদের প্রত্যেকের মধ্যে যে ম্যাজিকটা আছে ওটা বের করে নিয়ে আসুন। আমরা ওয়ার্ল্ডের সর্বশ্রেষ্ঠ জাদুকরে পরে থাকতে পারবো। নমস্কার।
The district magistrate Zakir Hussain